Hey guys, it's SD, your host of the Life Picks Relationship podcast, where people with all sorts of backgrounds, challenges, and life experience show us how they make their relationship extraordinary.
Hey guys, hope you're having an awesome day and ready to make 2021 your best year yet. I am so excited for today's guest. It's like a complete understatement. We've got the founder of CROWNYOURSELF.com together with her husband, the author of Food Game, a man's ultimate recipe for dating success. Thank you so much, Kimberly and Spike Spencer, for being here. Let's get right to it. How did you guys meet? Okay, so Spike and Kimberly, let's start with how did you meet?
Who wants to go?
So we met at an entertainment networking mixer. I had just found out that my first feature film that I had co-written had gotten picked up. And so I was going to meet somebody there to celebrate, totally platonic. The guy ended up being a friend of Spike's, and we ended up chatting. And I see this guy, and back then you had like long piratey hair, and he swaggers up to me and he goes, flips his hair a little bit. Your hair was like almost a little short, like it was almost as long as mine.
Yeah, about there.
Yeah. So he swaggers up to me and he goes, "Hi, I'm Spike." I'm like, "Hi, I'm Kim." And he's like, "I'm not."
Did I do that?
Acting it out.
Oh, we're acting out. Okay, so here's how it went. I said, "Hey, how you doing? I'm Spike."
"Hi, I'm Kim."
Kim, I got one question for you.
"What's that?"
Are you single?
"Not anymore." No, I didn't say that. No, I said at the time I was in an It's Complicated relationship. And so I said, "I guess you could say I'm in an It's Complicated." He says, "Great. At least I'm not barking up the wrong tree. Let's grab a drink." And so grabbed a drink and we just kept talking and dancing and karaoke singing. And at the end of the night, my car got locked in a parking garage and he drove me home and very respectfully dropped me off and then set the date for the following week. And
like a perfect gentleman. And
I figured since he didn't murder me on the drive home, it would be safe to go over to his house where he had promised to cook for me on the first date.
Which is my dating tip number one. Don't kill your date. And other cooking tips. Yeah. So.
Oh, wow. That is fun. Okay. So now you said you were in a relationship then. What about you, Spike? You had a relationship before?
No, I was very single. I was in the middle of dating, my height of my dating career, I guess you could say, because I was...
You did basically make a career out of it.
I did. I did. I wrote the book, Food Game, a man's ultimate recipe for dating success, available on Amazon now. I had been teaching guys how to date for years from the stage with my Don't Kill Your Date and Other Cooking Tips panel. And what that is basically, you cook for your dates and the dates come to your apartment. And it works. It's amazing. It's fantastic. And
it's because you were broke.
Why does it work so well?
Well, number one, I was an actor in Hollywood and I was broke. I had no money. And but I could cook, and I had been going out. I had been training myself. Long backstory, but I had a divorce and a bankruptcy back in 2005. Moved to LA, knowing few people, and had to start over from scratch. And so I worked very hard on myself, lots of self-help, personal growth, and got better and better at dating. And the thing was, I didn't have any money, so I was like, okay, well, what can I do? I can cook, and I invite women over. And that's how I dated for about 7 years before I met her. And
then I locked him down.
Locked me down.
I didn't know she was the one.
Yeah, absolutely.
How did you know?
Oh, how did I know?
How would you not?
It
was my humility.
It really was. Her humility makes her better than every other woman. I think that's really the key. She'll tell you, ask her.
Oh, stop.
So,
why are the best human out there?
What?
Kim, why are you the best human?
Why am I the best human out there? I'm the best human for him. That's for sure.
She makes great decisions on men. Finally.
Yeah. After complicating relationships, then how was it now okay, so you had been with other guys and now all of a sudden you see Spike, and how did you know it was good and it was okay and this was healthy?
So literally 2 hours before I met Spike, I was at I was driving to this networking event, and I was praying. I remember where I was in Burbank driving my car, and I was at a stoplight, and I was about to turn onto the freeway, and there was this gorgeous sunset. And I remember just praying. I was like, God, all I want is to just be really authentic and to travel. That was all I wanted. I just wanted to be really authentic, and I wanted to travel. And so when I met Spike, there were moments when in past relationships, I've been very, very skilled at adapting myself to what I thought the other person wanted to hear or for me to be so that I could be loved. And that really came from a childhood trauma and growing up with an addict for a father. And so having an addict for a dad, I learned early on how to adapt my behavior to appease a man. And so that training, that conditioning, I took into all my past relationships before Spike. And then on the night I met Spike, and what caused our conversation to go on for so long, 8 years later, it was that I just set the foundation, and I had to have the courage to really show up and be authentic. And I did what you're told, like everyone tells you not to do when you first meet a guy who you're kind of interested in. And I just laid it all out. I laid out the things that I was guilty of, the things that I was ashamed of. I told him that I had been previously married because and that was something that I was still processing, that still my best friends at the time didn't know back then, because I had so much shame and guilt around that. And so I share with him all of these things very openly and candidly. And it took a lot of courage, because I remember the moment. It started out with 80s music, because he was saying how much he loved 80s music, and I don't. I do like 80s rock, but 80s pop just annoys me. And it's just a preference.
No. I must say, 80s pop is not my thing. 80s industrial dance music, that's my thing.
Yeah.
Because Depeche was not pop.
Yeah, no, that's why I like Depeche Mode.
Exactly.
Yeah.
See?
So, and AC/DC. But other than that, and so I remember him saying oh, I loved 80s music, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, oh yeah, no, not my jam. And it was a moment of such courage, because in the past, what I would have done would have been, yes, or I wouldn't have voiced my opinion, or I would have kept that quiet so that maybe he would like me more if he thought I was into 80s stuff. And then I would pretend to be into all these things that he was into. And I was like, no, I'm done with that. So I was honest. I vocalized that. And then it was just kind of like this truth serum that I had just ingested, then allowed the rest of everything to just come spewing out. And he loved it. And he loved it. And it was, partly I think because of what you went through with your ex-wife and her being untruthful and inauthentic. And so he loved it. And so he furthered the conversation by asking me to come over to his place to cook. Or well, not for me to cook, for him to cook. No one wants me in the kitchen. I'm good at many things. Cooking is not one of them.
Lucky guy who wrote a book about cooking.
This is true.
Okay, so what would you suggest to someone who wants to start becoming more authentic?
Good question.
Make the decision.
Make the decision and have the courage to live into it. Because it takes courage to show up as all of who you are at your core, and not who people said you should be or are supposed to be and whatnot. And authenticity goes, it can also be in a way of sharing too much too. Sometimes I've seen this online, especially with coaches and consultants and service providers, where they suddenly are being so vulnerable that it's almost like this attention grab sort of thing of that they feel like that's because they've been told they should be vulnerable. So suddenly they're sharing about these things that it's almost like, look at me. And that's still not being truly authentic, because you're again doing what someone else said you should or are supposed to do to get whatever. And that's not authenticity. Authenticity is cultivating a trust within yourself that you are enough as you are, and you can always keep growing and learning.
well, piggyback off of that, something that has been instilled in people for so long, and it comes from like the Jerry Maguire movie, "You complete me," that sort of idea, that concept. And people are like, oh, you've got to find your other half. It's like, that's a mistake. That's a huge mistake, because what you're doing is you're looking for somebody else externally to fulfill something within yourself that should already be there. So you do the work internally, you have everything you need already, you're perfect as you are. What you want is someone to enhance that as a teammate, as a cheerleader, as a partner. And if you're going to look for somebody to complete you, you're going from a sense of lack. And that's not a good, strong place to be.
And if you think of it from that completion standpoint, if you think of it metaphorically as like a circle, if you have two halves and you put them together, there's still going to be a line of division in between. There's still going to be something that you have to seam up. So it's not complete. Like, you can't tear a paper and rip it back together. There's still always going to be that tape. And maybe it's the tape of validation, or the tape of other people's acceptance, or the tape of like how you should be in a relationship. When really, if you're coming into a relationship as whole and complete as you are, and it's like, what I say is you are both perfect and perfecting at the same time. So you are perfect and whole as you are. I have definitely evolved since we met. And so has he. And so has he. This just sounded weird to me. So has thine.
So has him. So has him.
So has Spike. Like, we've evolved together and become more of who we are, and and more aligned with who we've wanted to become by being together. But that can only be when you come to a relationship being fully all of yourself and accepting all of yourself. And there was definitely a time in our relationship when I was testing how much of me you would accept.
What did you do to test him?
Oh my gosh. I brought out, like, there were certain sides of me. Like, sometimes I can have a very weird sense of humor where I do really bizarre characters. It's something the interwebs have not been blessed with seeing.
I have.
You got
and I'm like, yeah, she'll be doing something. I'm like, so what is this? What's happening here? I'm gonna go over here.
But he accepts it. And it was like, I remember when it took about 6 months.
Let me know when she's off stage.
It took about 6 months of like that testing to see, okay, will he really accept all of me? Okay, what if, like, is he really accepting all of me? And after I realized that, yeah, he was really accepting all the parts of me that I have, and all the stuff I'm processing and learning through and growing through. All the glory, all the guts too. And
all the sparkle.
And
baby.
vice versa. I mean, you too had some baggage to unpack.
No, I don't. I got no baggage whatsoever.
Yes, you do.
Yes, you do. Wait, how did you do that? You made me say that. Wow, she's really good. Well, we all have baggage. And the way I put this in dating, I said, look, people say you have baggage, I have baggage. When you find the right person, they help you unpack. And you get rid of that stuff. And that's what we do. You know, when we have an issue or something, we look at it, we examine it later on. Like, okay, hey, so what was that about? Let's really figure this out. And I think what was, if I may, the consistency aspect. I'm like the most consistent, strong, solid. I'm here. And some people aren't used to that from their family standpoint or from their life. It's like, wow, this is a new thing. What is this? So I'm going to test you. I'm going to push you. I'm going to drive you away and see if you keep coming back. Mm-hmm. And if you do it in a certain way, I mean, testing happens no matter what, but it's how you respond to that test. As a man, usually I deal with the men's side. It's how you respond to these tests.
And sometimes I don't even know I'm testing him, and he's like, "That's a test." I'm like, "Is it?" But yes, I don't consider it a test. I consider it just a learning experience.
Sure. The verbiage doesn't matter. But you have to realize what's happening.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it really is, it's
normal. It's fine. And a lot of guys don't get that. It's like, oh my God, she's just doing this thing. It's like, dude, she's testing you. Just stand there, be cool.
You're wrong. Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay. Now, as you were becoming more authentic to him, to the rest of the world, you were becoming more vulnerable, or really not still?
Oh, I was becoming more vulnerable at what I thought I needed to be vulnerable in. So, I mean, at the same time I met Spike, I also had the opportunity to come on at first as a consultant and then as a partner in an e-commerce company. And so I thought I was going to be this like big businesswoman and like, yeah, the product got featured in Times Square and yeah, I got to pitch it to the first round of Shark Tank auditions. Like I didn't get to actually meet the sharks, but I did get to pitch it. And that was like, and we got in a lot of, big press and whatnot from that experience. But at the same time, it really taught me about alignment and finding people that are aligned with your values and being very clear on what your values are, not only as a person, but as a company. And that's a lot of the work that I do now with my entrepreneur clients. That is actually some of the most profound work that I do, that like, no matter what happens with their sales, the values, when we go back to the values and they see how their customers are living by the values that they set forth and their partners or their team are living by those values, that it changes the game. And what happened with that e-commerce business was my business partner and I just had different values. And that's fine. It's not saying that my values were bad or his were good or mine were good and his were bad. It's just different. And we'd never come together on that mutual surface knowing the value. I mean, one of the values in Spike and my relationship has always been candor and like total rip the Band-Aid off honesty of just like, this is what I'm going through. And sometimes it's honesty of like, I'm going through this, I'm struggling with this, and I don't know how to process this or deal with this, but I'm letting you know that this is what it is. But the thing was, in my e-commerce company, I was still kind of trying to fake it till you make it. And just by like and it's because I was in this massive stage of learning and growth and learning how to market and learning how to do PR and learning how to do all these things to grow the company and get it featured in all these different press outlets and get people buying it. And I remember when I was, when my partner told me he wanted to buy me out, it was really Spike that rallied to my side in that way, because I was so pushing for this thing to work. And it goes to show, like, it went to show me that you can really try to, like, especially because I work with a lot of high achievers, you can work to make something work, but if it's still a square peg, round hole, it ain't going to fit. And so the problem was with that company, I was in that company, and to be quite honest, like for it to grow so that then I would be able to have the money to do the things I really wanted to do. And I found that sort of conditioned belief of like, if I do this, then I'll have that, instead of just claiming what it is that you want, like claiming that thing that you want and just saying, no, there's no conditions on it. This is what is. This is what I want. I want the income. I want the impact. And that is what I really claimed with Crown Yourself. And that's also what I claimed with our relationship, is like, I wanted a truthful, authentic relationship where we got to travel. And now we're in the Gold Coast for 7 months during a pandemic.
That's fun. Woo! So you haven't been living there before?
No, we ended up, Spike was here for a convention back in March, ironically with the cast of The Walking Dead. And then we just decided if we're going to be on lockdown, we might as well just get an Airbnb and just have the beach as our backyard. So we decided to move here. We didn't know it'd be quite so long. And then now we're deciding that we're going to be here for 2 more years while Spike goes to culinary school.
Yeah. So cool. So where are you coming from before?
Los Angeles.
Okay. What was your favorite place to travel?
Ooh, that's a tough one.
See, Gold Coast is pretty awesome.
This is amazing. This is now one of our favorite places on the planet for sure.
But I would definitely say Italy.
Italy was...
Our honeymoon was phenomenal. We got this beautiful little Airbnb with like sloping vineyards and an ocean view.
And a donkey in the distance.
And a rooster. And
bells.
Church bells. All for less than our apartment back in Los Angeles.
That was absolutely amazing.
What part of Italy was this in?
The northern Italian Riviera.
Yeah, Monelia, outside of Cinque Terre.
Such fun. Yeah. I love traveling. It's the part of this whole situation is not being able to travel.
Yeah, I mean, that's the fun part about us staying here. When we just made that decision, we just decided, like, this is what we've always wanted. We've all, like, when Spike and I first started dating, we really did a lot of talking, more than what I think a lot of couples do, where we talked about our vision. We started making vision boards.
Well,
like
also,
in
it's
the
actually
first year.
talking. I think
It's
that's
actually
the key.
talking. It's not talking about mundane stuff.
Yeah, people, flap their lips and say stuff, but they don't actually talk. They don't actually communicate and connect. And we work hard on that.
Yeah, there's a difference between talking, and I think there's sometimes the talking can be a lot of gossip of like, oh, let me tell you about what, Sherry did at work and da-da-da-da-da. And like, that's that type of talking, we just don't tolerate that. And when we talk about, even if we are talking about a person or something, we're talking about our experiences of that person and how we need to shift in order to become better, in order for that experience with that person. So it's not about the person. It's not a blamey sort of conversation of they did this, blah, 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 blah. Let me complain and just bitch about them. It's one of like, let me look inside and look at what I can change and how I can evolve and become better.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What she said.
How do you make sure to still have those good, deep conversations now? Like, do you set a time, or is it just the way you talk? There's no such a thing as not a deep conversation?
Well, it is also the fact that we are ongoing students of growth. So we always have something to share with each other. And she'll come and speak, oh, I heard this great podcast and you've got to listen to this. And here's a concept. We got to check this out. And so we're always looking at growth and something that interests us. And like, I know things that I like to do and she doesn't like to do. She's got things that she likes to do, I don't like to do, but they both ignite us in separate ways. So that energy, we bring that back together. So I don't stop her from doing something and she doesn't conform to what I love. If I like to watch some sci-fi stuff, she's like, I don't think so. Unless it's Battlestar Galactica, which was really great.
There is some sci-fi that I like and other sci-fi that I'm just like, wah, wah.
Yeah, but she doesn't get into that. I get into my 80s music for working out and stuff. She doesn't get into that. That's fine.
I get into cold showers. He will not even touch that with a 10-foot pole.
The Wim Hof method is not my thing. No.
Yeah.
No, we're not doing that.
He won't do the Wim Hof method with me. It's very sad. No. It's okay. The good news is that Decky will, because our son loves cold baths and showers too. So
it's crazy for a little kid too. It's not like a conscious decision. Like, okay, now work on it to make sure I like cold showers.
Oh no, thank you.
Yeah, he loves to turn. When he's in the bath, in a hot bath, he loves to turn on the cold and just like dump a cup of cold water on him. So
I've got a partner in crime with you.
Yep. So I've got my Wim Hof buddy.
Good. I'll be over in the sauna.
Yeah. Okay. So how do you deal with challenges?
Good question.
We say, bring it on.
Yeah.
I mean, we know any challenge is going to grow us. Any challenge we're going to learn new things and new ways of dealing with that challenge. And if that challenge comes, then great. If it's a challenge that we can say, we reject this thing. If, a lot of people call, oh, this is a challenge. It's like, a lot of these challenges are challenges to your thoughts.
Yeah.
And people say, oh my God, this happened. And we'll say, no, that didn't happen. We reject that. That's going on.
Or it's not that it didn't happen. It's like, oh, this could happen, or oh, this could happen.
That's what I mean.
And that sort of fear-based mindset, we just choose not to ascribe to that. And some people think that is ignorant, and I disagree heartily. It's a choice to keep your mind focused on vision. And how I attribute it, it's if you're driving a car, you're looking at the road ahead where you want to go. You're not driving looking in the rearview mirror at like the possible cop car that is behind you, or else you crash. So what a lot of people do when they focus on the fears of like what could happen, or what could, the whatever could happen from whatever, they're looking at in the rearview mirror while trying to still drive forward, and your mind can't split the vision. So we choose, like, well, we'll occasionally check to see, are there flashing lights behind us? Are there things that we need to be on the lookout for? But we'll check our surroundings, but we're constantly reassessing and recalibrating to look at that vision of where we want to go instead of where we don't want to go, because your unconscious mind can't process negatives.
Yes.
Well, let me go on a little bit further on this tack. So here's a challenge. You packed for 3 weeks, you're in Australia, and you can go home tomorrow and see what's happening back home, or you can relax. And so there's a challenge. There's a choice. It was a decision. So we had a challenge. So we decided to stay. We figured, a couple months it'll be over, then we'll go home. So we get an extended vacation, we get to learn things, etc. And everybody else's mindset was like, oh, are you okay? Are you okay? And we're like, we're freaking awesome. Are you kidding me? Mm-hmm. So other people's challenges, that's what I'm saying. We reject. That's not a challenge. This is an interesting opportunity. So that's what we look at. If it's a challenge, is it an opportunity? How do we make it an opportunity? And we have turned this into such an amazing opportunity. And so we still get people, are you okay? We're so sorry for you. I'm like, okay,
have you seen our pictures on Instagram? Have you seen the fact that we now live in a resort? Like, it's all good.
For less than rent. And
seriously, for less than rent in Los Angeles. So it's interesting. Challenge accepted, baby. It really comes down to that mindset of challenge accepted, of like, oh, cool, this happened. And there is a certainty, and I said this on the last podcast I was on, that basically 2020 is my year of trust. It's of really finding and cultivating that trust with the universe, with God, that God's got our back, that it's that trust and faith, and it's that trust that we can figure anything out. So, okay, this is a problem. Okay, this is a challenge. All right, cool. We can figure that out. But I'm not going to spend my life worrying about the challenges that could possibly be down the road before I've actually dealt with the challenge of just getting started. And that's what I see a lot of couples, a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, or a lot of people, even who are just getting into dating, they fear what could happen down the road. I had one client who was like this. She was scared of getting into another relationship. And so she wasn't losing the weight. And she was like, I'm doing everything I can to lose the weight, but she wasn't shedding the weight. And I said, I'm going to ask you quite bluntly, like, why don't you want it? And she's like, what are you talking about? I'm in here every day. I'm doing Pilates. I'm doing this. And I said, okay, but let's sit with this for a question for a moment. Why don't you want it? And when we really dug into why she didn't want it, she didn't want to get into another relationship where she would again be emotionally abused like she was in the past one. And so when that happened, when she came to that discovery, suddenly I said, well, so the problem really isn't the relationship, because that's down the road. Like, you can choose to have another relationship or you can choose to not to. But if the problem that you want to deal with is losing some weight and getting fit and getting healthy, then let's not use a future possibility of a relationship that could be, again, emotionally manipulative to be your excuse. And instead, let's deal with what is right now. And as soon as she started to do that, she started to accept that. She started to lose the weight and started to feel good in her body and started to take better care of herself and not eat things that she knew she shouldn't be eating, that weren't nourishing her body. And it's interesting what happens when we use these future possibility fears to justify our current reality and the things that are holding us back, which really comes down to we're just holding ourselves back in that moment.
Yeah, it's literally.
Oh, shucks, mister.
Yeah, like you said, it's literally how you see it and what you're going to make of it. And then that's what you're going to feed your mind, and your mind's going to find ways to make it happen.
Yep.
Okay, now, do you think that patterns, either from yourself as a child or from past relationships have affected your relationship now? I know you worked really hard not to, but is there anything that... And how did you deal with it?
Yeah. You recognize the patterns,
mm-hmm.
and that's annoying, actually, because you're like, dang it, I'm in the pattern again. And it's like, just pointing out the pattern, that's part of it. Mm-hmm. But it's a continual job to keep working on it until the pattern shifts, until it changes, and get rid of the pattern. You have a new pattern, it's...
To give an example, growing up with an addict, and so a pattern from childhood for me is that there is always instability in some way. there is all like, I really can thrive in some form of chaos. And so sometimes when I catch myself creating a situation of chaos, normally it's where there is like, it's not so much in our relationship, but what happens in my business affects our relationship, or it's my response to our son, where suddenly it's like this like whirlwind, or as Spike calls it, a hurricane is happening, where suddenly I just start like, I'm so overwhelmed. I'm so like it's like this whirlwind of like emotional chaos that I bring, he calms me and centers me. Is like, oh, you're back in that pattern of creating chaos again, because that's what I'm used to. I'm like having he's the most consistent person I've ever had in my life, where he just is, he's there and he is who he is. And yeah, he has his stuff that he's working through. Of course, we all do. He's still there. He still shows up consistently. What do you need help with? How can I help? And so when I get into those moments of chaos, I recognize my own pattern and I'm like, oh, okay, there I am doing it again. How can I get calm? How can I get centered? How can I borrow from his certainty in me and settle back into that trust and into that faith that I can figure this out?
And I wanted to, when you said that I'm working on my things as well, and I think there's something to be said there. We're all working on our things. Some of us are actively working on them to see the patterns, to grow past them. Most people are not. Most people do nothing in personal growth, self-help, or they just they're just living their lives. And that's, to me, that's sad, because if you're just living your life, then you're not really living your life. It's living you. And you're just kind of there.
That's good.
I know, right?
That's good.
Every now and then I'm pretty smart. Yeah. So it's that situation where the unexamined life is not worth living. Who said that? I forget who it was, but it's true. And so like I have stuff that I'm working through. I will until the day I leave this planet. And I hope so, because I want to keep working and getting better. It's just like martial arts. As long as you maintain that you're a student, you can be the best master martial artist in the world. You could be Bruce freaking Lee, and he was still training every day. You know, that's the sort of thing. And that's what we preach. That's what we tell people is like, you want to get better, do it. Do it. And you do it every day. And just by making the decision to do it, you've already started down that path.
And I'd say that this is also one of the foundational values of our relationship. It's always been growth-mindedness. It's always like, and in my company, it's a little different. Like we frame it as grow or die, as our value, because, hardcore queens. So, but it's that like, it's that growth mindedness that is one of the pivotal values of our marriage, that we are constantly exploring ourselves, our patterns, our how we can become better, not just for each other, but for ourselves, for our children, for the community that we support, the communities that we're building, for our clients, for the world, and for what we want to really leave it as our impact. And it's that constant desire to up level, and that constant, and that in itself, like I could not be with someone who did not have that as a similar value. I tried that. It didn't work out so well. Because like that for me is a form of settling. Like I will never settle for just like, oh, okay, I think I'm done growing. Like, no, there's always another level. There's always something deeper to learn. There's always something more. And Spike's on that same journey too. And that's one of the values that makes our relationship work so well.
Oh, and one other thing is in a relationship, you have to realize that this is a business, if you want to look at it that way. I mean, this is, we have
financially, yeah. Like
we have a company, we have a group here. We have me, her, we have Declan, and this is a group. This is an entity that needs to be treated with respect. Not just as like, oh yeah, I'm married, that's my wife, that's my ball and chain. It's like, I would never say that. I would never say that. This is my partner. This is, we are in this together. And it has to be focused on that way, because people say, oh, I've got my business, and they focus so hard on their business and they forget this is the business of living your life that is incredibly important, because if this business fails, your other business is going to fail too.
Yeah,
Believe.
nothing tanks nothing tanks your productivity faster than a divorce or problems with your primary romantic relationship.
Just ask Bezos.
Just ask Bezos. Yeah, that's a big one.
I mean, yeah, I mean, it's huge. With anybody.
Yeah,
it's doesn't matter how big you are. You know, this is the important part. This is the foundation of your business right here, your family. This whole, the marriage, it is so essential. And yet so many people don't pay attention to the actual working, areas and levers and things that go into a relationship.
Yeah. It's literally, you could see in you that it's just your whole life and your way of living. Now, did you go through to any specific therapist or counselor, or you was just like podcast, books, self-help my whole life?
I mean, we've both had coaches and mentors throughout our lives. I know that we've both heavily invested just like in the past 4 years alone in coaches, mentors, programs. So I haven't personally been to a therapist. I was considering working with one for some PTSD that was coming back that I had. But fortunately, through just even asking for help and just having a few conversations with her, it was pretty good to go.
You're running in a pretty healthy place. So
yeah. So it was just, it's what I like to think of as degrees of perfection. So we're constantly perfecting. We're constantly making those little incremental adjustments along the way. It's that idea that if you fly a plane from New York to Los Angeles, if the vision is to get to Los Angeles, but you're just 1 degree off, you could land in San Francisco or you can land in Baja California. So constantly checking in to make sure that you are on track, not even 1 degree off. And that's what our couch time, as we call it, is. Like, sometimes we'll sit down and watch a Netflix show, and sometimes we will turn off the Netflix show and just start having a conversation about how we're growing, what we're focusing on. And then that conversation will just kind of evolve into what we want next. Like, so often a lot of conversations with couples can be rooted in fear or, oh my God, did you hear what this happened with, this president and this thing, or, all those conversations. And I mean, believe me, when we first started our relationship, we had those conversations, and suddenly I caught ourselves, like, when we got even more into coaching and personal development, I was just like, let's just shut off the news. Like, let's just shut off the information and see how it affects us. And Spike changed radically. He stopped. He's so much more positive. He was so much more, and he's already like a pretty positive guy, but he got even more of a silver lining. He got more of a vision because he stopped consuming and participating in discussions that I'm like, it's only emotion fueling emotion.
I cut my puppet strings.
Yeah.
Basically, that's it. Because we're all being played. And you can cut them yourself. And that's what I did. And, my journey on the personal growth and self-help, yes, I did have some kinds of therapies, but not like an official therapy thing. Yeah. After my divorce and bankruptcy and everything. I had to start over. And I've been doing personal growth since the 80s. And I was doing real estate and acting. And I was like, when I was bartending, I was like Tom Cruise in Cocktail. I had the book behind the bar about, how to get rich or, success, as always, this thing. And I thought I was doing really, really well right up until it all exploded. And then I was like, whoa, I had to readjust everything and say, okay, here I am with nothing, moving to a new place, scared to death at the lowest level of my life. I had to start over. So, and that was a gift I didn't see at the time, but the gift was, all right.
Again, you're on a challenge.
Yeah. Put all this stuff into practice. So after a couple of years, it was really rough, but then I started to say, okay, you know what, let's do this. And then I started traveling all over the world, having fun, teaching and coaching. And I didn't realize I was teaching and coaching, really. I was just sharing what I knew. And it was great. And I did it. I didn't read about it. I did it. And that's when I was ready for her, because otherwise I wouldn't have been ready for all this. Yeah. And the same is true. Like, I look back at all my past relationships and I'm so grateful for every single one of them. Like, and some of them had some pretty crappy experiences, but I'm so grateful because I would not have been ready for this had I not been through those experiences, had I not
done the things that I'd done and learned from them and learned what I really valued. I mean, one of the questions I ask my clients all the time is, where did you get your best education? From a book or from experience? And hands down, always, it's experience that leaves its marks on you. It leaves its marks that that you can turn into like a glorious, like radical tattoo that you're just so proud of, or it can be a giant scar, so that you wear around with shame. So it's your choice to design it how you choose to design it, and you design it through the perspective that you choose to see those experiences. And so in every past experience that I've had that people would say that I was a victim of in certain circumstances, I still look back at those with gratitude that it has allowed me to serve at a deeper level than I ever would have been able to had I not had those experiences. So I'm so grateful for all of the things that have happened to me in my past, so that it shaped me into being the woman that I am today, that is able to serve at the level that I am today, that's able to be the mother and the wife that I am today. Like, that is a powerful perspective shift, because I tried the complaining and the blaming, and I realized that for me, I have about a 1.5 year window where I'll allow myself to kind of play small in that area. And then after a 1.5 years, it's normally about a 1.5 years, I just get fed up with my own bullshit. And I'm just like, okay, I'm done with this. Let's change it.
And that window is shrinking too.
It constantly shrinks.
Yeah. It's finally to be, okay, I've had a week of this. Now let's make it a success. Let's go.
Yeah.
Awesome. Last question. How would you describe an extraordinary relationship without using the word love, connection, or intimacy?
Love, connection, or intimacy.
No, you can't use those words.
I know. I love, connection, or intimacy without.
And your mind's going to focus on that and is going to come up with a sentence with that.
Exactly. So the sentence is just going to have love, connection, and intimacy in those words.
Intense communication without expectation.
You can't use communication.
Connection, she said.
Ooh. So what did you say? Intense communication?
Intense communication without expectation.
Ooh. It's so sexy sometimes. I love your brain.
Bite on that for a while, y'all. Well, think about it. It really is the communication between two people is, I have a saying, I say miscommunication is actually missed communication, because everybody tells you what they want and need, but they do it in their own language. And it's your job to speak that language. And most people never take the time to even give it a shot. And that's some of the things that we teach. So once you have the communication, if it's authentic, real communication, the connection that I can't say will happen anyway. So that is kind of where I'm going with that. And I think that is the most important aspect of anything in any business, love, and life. If that communication is not received the way it was intended, if you deliver communication and it is received different from that you sent it, you're not going to have a good communication at all. There will be no connection. There won't be any love. There won't be any of it, because you're getting the wrong information. Somebody will be mad when you sent something funny. You're like, this is really, really funny. They're like, you, rah, rah. Not that that's ever happened to me or you or anybody else watching this who sent a text and thought it was funny and then they lost a friend.
Mm-hmm.
It happens because that's the miscommunication. And I think, and people just let that slide. So I think it's important.
Yeah.
And then did you want me to answer the same question?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So I would say it's authentic expression and acceptance with respect. So expression, it does touch on that communication element, because we are constantly expressing ourselves, and ideally you are expressing your authenticity instead of what you think would please the other person. And it's acceptance. It's a mutual ground of acceptance. Like, there are some things that I've said to Spike that I'm sure I'm sure there's certain things.
Oh, there's things that she'll say. I'm like, are you sure that's what you meant to say? Because the way I received it was this way.
Yeah. And it's an acceptance of my past, and it's an acceptance of his past. It's also an acceptance of where he is. So it's kind of touching on that expectation thing. It's like, I'm not expecting him to be at a certain place that he's not yet. I'm accepting him for where he is right now, and coming back to that place of acceptance and respect, and mutual respect for for each other, and that foundation that we may, and constantly that recommitment to that respect of really sharing it and keeping that as a foundation. So I would say, yeah, authentic expression, acceptance, and respect.
Awesome.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T.
Awesome. Thank you so much. This was amazing. I loved every second, and I hope you did too.
We did.
Absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you.
Did you enjoy that episode? Could you do me a personal favor and subscribe and leave a review? It would mean a lot to me. Thank you so much and have an awesome day.